Quote of the day: the heart keeps a rhythm the world can't always hear. Some call it hope, others call it faith, but it beats steady even in silence. Now, faith is a confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. That is your quote of the day. Now, let's get right into this video. Now, on NXT this week, we got a huge TNA invasion, which was pretty cool, and that was probably like the biggest highlight of the show. It was a pretty cool segment. And throughout the whole show, we got surprise appearances from big TNA superstars, big names like Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, which was pretty amazing, which was pretty cool seeing him back in the WWE. It's been years, at this point, and we got to see Mike Santana back, Joe Hendry, and other faces that I'm not too familiar with, along with a few faces that I am familiar with. So that was a pretty cool moment, in my opinion. We got a big invasion, NXT got invaded, TNA came for blood, and they literally attacked everyone. Like, they came like 20 deep, they came with a gang, they came with the group, they came with the boys, with the girls. They were out for vengeance because they've been complaining the whole week that they don't like how NXT's been handling the TNA championship. They want it back, and we're getting this whole TNA versus NXT angle, and I'm all here for it. This was so fun to watch. But anyways, though, besides that, NXT was pretty good in my opinion. It did feel like there was something missing throughout this whole show. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was good, but like there was definitely a spark missing. I don't know what it was, but just something wasn't hitting and it wasn't clicking like it should have been. But overall, though, I enjoyed all the surprise appearances. Like I said, I enjoyed the promos we got and most of the matches we got. It was a solid show, but I feel like it could have been a whole lot better, in my opinion. But anyhow, though, let's just get right into this review and let's talk about what we saw in this week's episode of NXT. So to kick off the show, we got the Miles Bourne versus Lexis King lights out match. And this was basically a no disqualification match with a single dim spotlight throughout the whole match, And I didn't know what I was expecting, but for some reason, I don't know what sense this would have made, but I thought, I don't know why, it's so silly, but I just thought my whole TV would have been black the whole time, and that was a lights out match, It was such a silly thought, but like, that's what I expected, because I'm like, lights out, I'm like, nobody's supposed to be able to see, like, right? But the premise of it was that, it was just one big spotlight, like, all the other lights were off, and it was just a spotlight following the action, and it was like a dim spotlight, so that was that. Anyways, so before the match could even start, Miles Bourne ended up ambushing Lexis King. He attacked them, and we got this new aggressive, mean side of Miles Bourne again. He's trying to, like, I guess, do something different. He's listening to Ethan Page's advice. He's being more serious, being more aggressive. And that was pretty cool seeing it. But the match itself, however, overall was pretty entertaining in my opinion. These two absolutely went at it, and we got chairs, we got tables, trash cans, and Miles Bourne even got whooped with Lexis King's belt, which was really funny in my opinion. And near the end of the match, we even got this crazy spot where Miles Bourne speared Lexis King through the barricade, which was absolutely crazy to see, and the crowd lost their mind seeing this, and it was really fun. Throughout this match, though, both men looked great, they looked amazing, they looked like stars, and especially Miles Bourne. I'm telling you, this new serious persona is like, it's hitting, this new serious persona, it's exactly what he needed, I feel like for a little while he was going stale, but with this new serious gimmick, like he's just serious, he's out for like blood, he's out for vengeance, like no nonsense. It's really doing him favors, this is really saving him right now, and I really do like this new version of him. Anyways, though, at the end of the match, Miles Bourne ended up hitting his finisher, the Born Again finisher, on Lexis King through a table for the win, and that was your match. And I guess for this whole entire rivalry, the final match, so for the final match in this rivalry, Miles Bourne took the W, he took the win, he picked up the win over Lexis King, and overall for this whole feud, this whole rivalry, I guess Miles Bourne came out on top, and that was that. It was a pretty cool rivalry while it lasted. I don't anticipate getting any more matches from this, I don't think we will, but we'll see. But anyhow, though, I did enjoy this rivalry from start to finish, however. Blindfolded match, lights out match. This was just pure fun, pure comedy, and pure jokes, But anyhow, after this, we got an in-ring promo from All Ego Ethan Page. And Ethan Page basically came out to the ring and he was just bragging about himself, how he was the greatest Canadian North American champion and all this and all that. And Tavion Heights can't keep up with him. Tavion Heights is nothing compared to him. And he even saw who he thought was El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. in the crowd. He was talking smack to him too, saying that if it wasn't for El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., he would be both NXT champion, also AAA champion right now. So it was pretty cool. He was just bragging. But the coolest part was that the person he did see in the crowd dressed as El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. actually ended up not being El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. It was Tavion Heights disguised as El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. and he ended up attacking Ethan Page, and he put Ethan Page in an ankle lock and Ethan Page tapped out. And after Ethan Page tapped out, the disguised man ended up picking up the championship, and then he removed the mask to reveal that it was Tavion Heights all along, which was a pretty cool moment in my opinion. Anyhow, after this, we got our second match of the night, and it was Candice LeRae versus Lainey Reed in the Speed Championship tournament match, and this was like the semifinal, I guess, and the final was happening on Saturday at No Mercy. So this was the semifinal match, and it was Candice LeRae versus Lainey Reed. So basically, the winner of this match would go on to face the champion, the current champion, aka Sol Ruka, for the Speed Championship. And this match, like all the other Speed Championship matches, the Speed Tournament matches, it was 3 minutes long. So I normally don't really have much to say about the match because it's really quick, There's not really much action that could be there's not much action that could be seen in 3 minutes, Like both of these women, they did what they could in the time limit they were given. They did the best that they could, and it was entertaining for what it was. But like, there's really not much to say about it. So like, yeah. But anyhow, though, Lainey Reed ended up picking up the win over Candice LeRae pretty easily, in my opinion. She kind of dominated throughout the whole match, honestly, surprisingly enough. And like I said, since it was a 3 minute match, there's not really much to say about it. But anyway, though, now it's gonna be Lainey Reed versus Sol Ruka for the Speed Championship at No Mercy, which is pretty cool. And it was announced that at No Mercy, the Speed Championship finale match is going to be actually a 5 minute match. So they get 2 more minutes added to the time limit, which I guess cool, but also, I don't know, man. This is really a silly concept to me. I don't know. I don't really like the premise behind the Speed Championship. I don't like these like time limit matches, like 3 minutes for a match. That's silly to me. 5 minutes for a match, it's silly to me. Like, I'll support it for what it is, more opportunities for the superstars and stuff like that. But overall, though, it's a silly concept to me. I really don't like the rush behind the match to get it done in 3 minutes. That sounds silly. It sounds goofy, But overall, though, that's that. Anyhow, after this, we ended up getting our third match of the night. And it was Ariana Grace versus JG, the Muscle Muffin, Jordani Grace. It was a one-on-one match. And this happened because Ariana Grace was talking smack about Jordani Grace, So we got the match. And this was actually a pretty quick match, And believe me when I say this, Jordani Grace absolutely dominated Ariana Grace. This was a one-sided match. Jordani Grace basically bullied and tossed around Ariana Grace for the whole match, most of the match at least. And it was really funny. This wasn't like, it was one-sided, like I said. This wasn't 50-50 by any means, But at the end of the match, Jordani Grace ended up hitting her finisher on Ariana Grace for the win. And after the match ended, the bell rings, and out of nowhere comes Blake Monroe. And she ends up storming out to the ring, and she ensues this huge brawl between her and Jordani Grace. They start fighting each other. A huge brawl breaks out, and these two women have to be separated. And the assistant GMs came out, and they announced that at No Mercy this Saturday, we're going to get a huge match between Blake Monroe and Jordani Grace, the Muscle Muffin, and it's going to be a steel cage weapons match. So anything goes. These women have the right to bring their own weapons, and it's going to happen in a steel cage, which sounds like a pretty interesting concept in my opinion. I'm looking forward to it. Anyhow, after this, we got an in-ring promo from JC Jane, and she was basically addressing her opponent for No Mercy, Vice City Lola Vice, So she basically came out and she said, I've been NXT champion for over 100 days, and I've overcome every label that the NXT universe has put on me. The most beatable champion in history, transitional champion. I've overcame all these labels. What do you guys have to say about it now? And then she went on to insult Lola Vice, saying that there's absolutely no way that Lola Vice will ever beat her and dethrone her and take this NXT Women's Championship away from her. And Lola Vice ended up interrupting her, and she came out and she told JC Jane straight up, you've been champion for 100 days. That's pretty impressive, but you've barely been surviving. You can't even defend the championship by yourself without help in your corner. And at No Mercy, I'm going to dethrone you for myself, my family, and the entire NXT universe. At No Mercy, that's exactly what I'm going to show you. No mercy. And JC Jane went on to respond saying that I know you want to make your family proud, but mama, at No Mercy, some way, somehow, I will be the one walking out as champion. I will retain. And you will be nothing more than your family's biggest disappointment. And Lola Vice was absolutely disgusted by this comment, and she heard enough. And she left JC Jane absolutely laid out. And she picks up the championship, basically sending the message that at NXT No Mercy, she's going to be the one walking out as NXT Women's Champion, And this was pretty interesting. I really like this promo segment from both of them. I like what JC Jane was saying, and I like what Vice City Lola Vice was saying as well. This was a pretty cool promo and a pretty cool interaction, Anyhow, after this, we got our fourth match of the night, and it was Dark State versus Say His Name and He Appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry. Anyhow, it was Dark State versus Joe Hendry and Chase University students, And this was a six-man tag match. And this was a pretty good match, in my opinion. The in-ring action was very entertaining. Like, we got a lot of cool spots, a lot of cool moments. And Joe Hendry's team with Chase University really stood out to me in this match personally. Like, they stole the show, especially the Chase U boys, Like, they're kind of still new in this whole NXT game, they're new faces, in my opinion. And they absolutely showed up and showed out, They look like a solid team, they looked dominant. They showed out. They were pulling out cool high flying moves left and right. They really did their thing and they stood out to me the most. Anyhow, though, at the end of the match, due to the overwhelming numbers game, Dark State was able to pick up the win over the Joe Hendry and Chase U team. They overwhelmed them with numbers, distractions, and everything, and they were able to pick up the win. And that was that match. After this, we finally made it to our main event. And it was whoop that trick, whoop that trick, oh yeah, whoop that trick, I like it. Trick Williams versus the Ruler Oba Femi. And it was a title versus title match. NXT title, TNA title, both of the championships were on the line. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was very disappointed by the results of this match. Like, this was not a bad match by any means, but I just didn't like how it ended because I was really excited for this. And I was like, title versus title match, I'm here for it. I want to see who takes all the gold home, Whoever wins this is officially the face of NXT. They're the biggest star, the biggest thing, And I was really hyped up for this. And I didn't like that it ended in no contest. That really disappointed me. Like, the match wasn't bad by any means. Like, the match wasn't bad. It was just the ending. I really wanted a solid finish, and like we could have got the invasion segment after that, the invasion scene after that, after the match ended. But like that's what I was hoping for. But we didn't get a clean finish. We just got an invasion that basically caused the match to end in no contest. So that was that. That really disappointed me, honestly. But anyhow, though, let's talk about the match. The match overall was entertaining, like I said. We got a lot of surprise appearances from TNA superstars, which was really cool. And like I said, we even got to see Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, which was really big. The crowd absolutely popped for that, But besides all the appearances and stuff like that, Trick Williams and Oba Femi absolutely did their thing in ring wise. They showed up, they showed out. I like the in ring action. I like the back and forth. I like the power dynamic. Both men didn't want to back down. They wanted to prove that they were the biggest draw in NXT and TNA and everything. They wanted to show that they were the biggest star, and they absolutely did that. It was pound for pound. Just like how Booker T normally says it. No bread, no water, just meat. But anyhow, this match, it was really good in my opinion. But like I said, though, disappointingly enough, it did end in a no contest finish due to the TNA invasion scene. So TNA basically launched an all-out attack on NXT, and it was straight chaos from then on, NXT stars were rushing out to defend NXT, and TNA stars were rushing in to basically beat down the NXT stars, and it was a big, like, siege scene, Like, it was a straight invasion, like, it was just stars coming in left, right, and center. Like the arena, it was full like a Royal Rumble match. Like that's how much like action was happening. Like we saw so many stars from TNA and so many stars from NXT just out in the ring, just trying to defend their respective brand. It was a pretty cool moment, and I really did like it, and I enjoyed it. And it does seem like we're getting this whole NXT versus TNA angle, and I'm all here for it. I'm excited to see where this goes. I guess they're gonna do this whole thing to see who's really the top brand, who really runs things around here, which is pretty cool. But anyhow, though, that was your whole show. It ended with the NXT and TNA invasion scene, and TNA ended up standing tall, which was pretty cool in my opinion. Overall, this episode of NXT, I would rate it a solid 6 out of 10. Like I said, I enjoyed all the surprise appearances we got. I enjoyed the promos and most of the matches. But like I said at the beginning of the video, my only issue was that it did feel like there was something missing, like a spark was missing, some big moment. Like the interesting parts really happened at the end of the show, in my opinion. Like the start of the show and like towards the middle, it was kind of like, it was whatever, I feel like there was a lot missing there. It could have been a lot more fun, a lot better in my opinion, but this show didn't suck. It wasn't terrible by any means, but I just felt like it could have been a whole lot better in my opinion. It just felt like there was something missing, and I can't really quite put my finger on it, but there was just something missing in my opinion, like a hype factor, something. But anyhow, though, that was my review and my breakdown of NXT this week. Thank you for showing up, thank you for hearing me out, and thank you for being here. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. Like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to. And like, comment, and subscribe if you choose to. As always, it's been a pleasure. I'm out.